Hey, it's Hawken with Topdon. Today we're going to do a video on a 2020 Ford Explorer. Now, this vehicle suffered a failure of the all-wheel drive control module, and so in this video, we're going to walk you through the programming of that module after it has been replaced. In our video here, we are programming a brand new module, which was purchased directly from the Ford dealer. If you are attempting to do this job with a used module, the process is going to be different. So just keep in mind that, again, this video is specifically with a brand new control module. So let's go ahead and get into the programming process. Now, as always, we want to talk about, we offer these training videos as free training, so there is no guarantees that everything we show you here in the video is perfectly accurate or going to be flawless, if you will. So just keep in mind that we don't assume any liability for inaccuracies or errors or anything that results from misoperation of your equipment. So just want to get that out of the way before we proceed here. So the tools that we're going to use today include our RLink Lite, which is our J2534 interface, a suitable laptop that meets the requirements that the Ford programming software requires, and then a programming power supply or stable voltage supply, such as our Tornado 90,000 or our Tornado 120A. Either of those will be suitable for programming on this particular vehicle. So let's go ahead and get started on the programming now. Just wanted to say a special thank you to Andrew Fisher for taking the time to work with us on this video so that we were able to record this for our users and make another walkthrough on how to do some programming on a Ford here. So the story on the vehicle is the all-wheel drive control unit has been diagnosed as faulty, and again, it has been replaced with a brand new unit directly from the Ford dealer. Now, if you're not sure what is required after you have replaced a control unit on a given vehicle, then what we are going to want to do first is look up the service information for that given component. Again, we also want to remember, if the component that's been installed is a used instead of a new, the process may be different. So we always want to keep that in mind on any vehicle that we are doing programming of a given module. It's also important to understand that some vehicles may not permit the usage of a used control unit in certain circumstances. So here is our research. I'll move my little bubble out of the way here so you can see me a little better. So here's our research from the service information. We are looking at the service manual here, the R&R or remove and replace procedure for this component, this all-wheel drive control unit. And the service information indicates that there are a few steps that are required with the diagnostic software once we have installed the new module. So we need to conduct the PMI or programmable module installation process. And then we also need to write the alphanumeric barcode as instructed here for the active torque coupling configuration to the all-wheel drive control unit. So again, you can see this is all written directly in the service information for the vehicle. So we're going to go ahead and keep that in mind as we go through our process. Now, there is also a reference chart on many Ford vehicles you will find like this. If you search in the service information, it will often be titled Module Configuration. This chart oftentimes will give you some specifics on what is required for specific modules on the vehicle with regards to programming and setup steps. As you can see here in our picture, there is a chart, and I snipped this or cut it in half and highlighted the related columns for the all-wheel drive control module. So the all-wheel drive control module requires programmable module installation, as you see here. It also requires flashing, which means there may be calibration or flash file updates for it. And there is also additional adaptive learning or calibration, which is labeled active torque coupling configuration. So those are the three specific things that are necessary and supported related to the replacement procedure on this given module. Again, this is all found directly in the service information for this specific vehicle. Many Fords will have information like this in the service information. So now that we've conducted our research and we understand what the basic requirements are for this particular process, now we're ready to go ahead and connect the Ford software. It's important to remember with Ford, there are two specific softwares that are compatible with J2534. There is FJDS, which is used for older Ford vehicles, in most cases, 2018 and older model years. There is also FDRS, which is for 2018 and newer model years. If you go to the Ford factory website, they outline which vehicles apply to which software. So again, keep in mind, two separate softwares, and it depends on the vehicle year and model which one is appropriate. Always make sure to check first before you download or install the software. In this case, it is FDRS. So the first thing we're going to do is go buy a subscription on the Ford website to FDRS, and they do sell short-term subscriptions. So we will purchase our short-term subscription. Once we have purchased the license, then we will download and install the software, which we're not going to walk through on this video. We're also not going to walk through it because it changes over time. So we're going to log into FDRS after we've installed it and purchased our license. You'll see you'll get a message like this that will say login is happening after you click the login button in the green. And if your license is current and active, you'll get a green license thing on the top left here. We will also see that it tells us what the most recent version of the software is. So if we need a software update, we will typically be made aware of that right here on the launch screen. Once we launch FDRS, on the initial screen of FDRS, it will automatically come up with a vehicle communication interface launchpad like this. Now, you can turn this off and make it so it doesn't come up when you boot the software. I would recommend you leave it turned on, as this makes your life just a little bit simpler. So here, the window pops up, and now we can choose our vehicle communication interface. And in this case, we are using a J2534, which is the RLink Lite. So in the drop-down menu here, we will select the RLink, and then we will click OK. Here's our checkbox here that says, always show the device manager on startup. Again, I would leave this turned on because this is going to be simpler for you in getting everything going. Once you've initiated the connection, you'll get a little window that says detecting device, and assuming everything connects correctly, now you will get a screen like this where you can connect to the vehicle. So here we can see our vehicle is populated. We have a 2020 Ford Explorer, and we can click the Go button to initiate the operations we need to carry out on the vehicle. Once we initiate, we need to make sure that our antivirus is turned off, our firewall is turned off, and that we are connected to a good, strong network. FDRS is cloud-based infrastructure. That means you have to have good, solid internet in order to make use of the software. So once we're connected to the internet, then it's going to reach out to the server and download the necessary information for our specific vehicle so that we can carry out the processes that we need to. Once it completes the download, it's going to do a network test and try to talk to all of the modules on the network. And then it's going to attempt to retrieve faults from all of the different modules. Now, in most cases, these are going to turn different colors here in this center screen. So you see they're all green at the moment, but in a lot of cases, you're going to have continuous monitor DTCs detected displayed here. And in those particular situations, that means there are fault codes in a module, right? Now I'm going to move my bubble out of the way again here, up and to the right. So once we're connected to the car and we get to this window, we're going to go down to the toolbox in the bottom right. The toolbox is where we're going to find all of the different functions that we need to carry out. And once we're in the toolbox, it's going to take us to a screen like this. So up on the top left, you're going to have tabs. And this is a little bit similar to the older Ford software, that there are tabs. We're going to click on the toolbox tab, and then we're going to go click on the module that we want to interact with. So in this particular case, we are clicking on the toolbox, and then we're clicking on the all-wheel drive control unit. The all-wheel drive control unit is what has been replaced, and so that is the component that we need to interact with. Once we click on it, it's going to filter the menus over on the right here, specifically for the module that we have clicked on. So now you see we have all the various functions for the all-wheel drive control module listed here. And remember, if we think about our service information, we had a couple of different things we needed to perform. Programmable module installation, reflashing of the calibration of the module, and writing the active torque coupling configuration information. Correct? So we got to carry out those processes. So the first one we're going to carry out is the programmable module installation. Now on Ford, programmable module installation is typically going to be initiated with the original module still installed in the vehicle. Now, if the original module does not communicate anymore, then you will need to install the replacement module first. If the original module does still communicate, you want to leave that installed before you initiate the programmable module installation. The reason for that being is programmable module installation will inhale information from the original module, save it inside the PC, and then exhale it back into the replacement module, thereby shortening some of the additional work having to be done by the software. So we're going to click on programmable module installation. And if we go over on the right here, we're going to click the download button. So we'll click download, and then we're going to click the run button. That's going to initiate the programmable module installation process. Once we initialize or initiate this process, you'll see in the top left corner, we have a labeling that says what we are currently doing, programmable module installation, and if there are any criteria or specific questions we need to answer before carrying out the procedure, we are also going to get a screen that'll pop up that may ask us a question like this. Now, in this case, the software is asking us a very specific question. It's asking us what our build date of the vehicle is. It's also asking us if the vehicle has a specific connector on the front axle disconnect before or after we have conducted the vehicle repair, or before and still, right? So you can see this is a question we have to answer. So how do we find out these answers? Well, for build date, we can go look at the sticker on the vehicle. There will always be a door placard on the vehicle that will tell you the build date. Otherwise, you can use online databases that can decode the VIN, and in many cases, they will give you the build date just like this. Then, in this particular case, there are some technical service bulletins, or of course, you can go underneath the vehicle and look at the front differential. So in this picture, we have the front differential over on the right, and we have the passenger side CV axle goes directly into that front differential. Then we have an intermediate shaft assembly that connects to the front axle differential and a left or driver's side CV shaft that connects to that assembly. That particular assembly has an electronic component to it and a connector, which you see from a Ford Technical Service Bulletin over here. So you see how there's a connector plugged into this front axle disconnect? That indicates that this particular vehicle does in fact have that connector and that system, and our build date was, as the question asked us, is it built before August 2020? The answer to that question was yes. Does the vehicle have a connector plugged into the front axle disconnect actuator? The answer is also yes. We went underneath the car. We looked at the axle assembly. Yes, there is a connector. So the answer to both questions is yes. So that means we're going to click yes. Again, you need to make sure that you check carefully when you are doing this process on your vehicle. So again, in our case, the answer to this question is going to be yes. Once we've clicked yes, the process is going to initiate and the software is going to progress by itself without any further input until you see an additional prompt. So now we're going to get a prompt that comes up and reminds us we need to have our programming power supply or stable voltage supply installed and properly set on the vehicle. So in the bottom right here, we can see our voltage display is 14.5 volts. That means we have our Tornado powered on, set to stable voltage at 14.5, and we also have the current feature set to 100 amps or 90 amps if it's the T90,000. So now we're going to click yes. And now in the programmable module installation, remember, it's going to ask us, do you have the original module still installed? Now, in this particular case, this module no longer communicated with the vehicle. Therefore, we needed to remove it first and install the new unit. So in this case, it's asking us, is the original module installed? And the answer is no. The original module would no longer communicate. Therefore, we need to answer no. So now, after we click no, it's going to remind us we need to be in key on, engine off position, and that is traditionally what you will find on a large number of vehicle programming services. Although there are some modern cars now that may require different conditions, this is common. It's also important to remember if this is a push button vehicle, in other words, it does not have a blade key, there may be additional steps necessary to keep the vehicle from switching off the ignition automatically. Sometimes that includes putting on the flashers, depressing the brake pedal, keeping the driver's door open, or putting weight on the driver's seat. Any or all of those, and also possibly buckling the driver's seatbelt, may be necessary to keep the vehicle awake so it does not automatically shut off the key position. Once we've clicked OK, it's going to go ahead and it's going to do what it needs to do as far as downloading software, doing the information exchange between the module and the database. And eventually it's going to come to a screen where it's going to tell you, hey, we need to cycle the ignition off. After we cycle the ignition off, we're going to click OK. Now we're going to get a confirmation that the application is finished, and then we're going to go ahead and click OK. After we've finished that, now we will be able to switch the ignition back on. And now we're going to go through and perform the next step. So remember, we said we were going to do programmable module installation first, and then we said we would do the all-wheel drive module software update, and then we said we would do the active torque coupling configuration last. So we got to go back to the toolbox in the top center here of the three tabs. We're going to click on the all-wheel drive module again, and then we're going to click on download and then run for the all-wheel drive module software update. Again, this is a best practice to update the software of the module you're replacing. Many times there will be an update to how that particular component runs or operates. It may also be necessary if it's a module that has been replaced on the car. You may need to reprogram additional module calibrations. Always check for technical service bulletins or any other form of service information that recommends you update software on multiple modules. So now we're going to initiate that software update on the all-wheel drive module. And you see it's going to progress, so it's automatically going to do the information exchange with the database. Again, we get the exact same question we had on the programmable module installation. So it's going to say, hey, is there a connector plugged in? And is our build date pre-August 11th, 2020? Again, the answer on our vehicle is yes. So we're going to click yes. Now it's going to remind us about having our programming power supply set up and ready to go. We're going to click yes. Again, it reminds us, key on, engine off. We're going to hit OK. And now the software will conduct what it needs to do in order to reflash the calibration for this module. Now, depending on the module that you're flashing, it can take anywhere from a relatively short period of time to a significant period of time. And certainly on the newer vehicles, it does take longer on more modules than it did on older vehicles. So just keep in mind, it's always very crucial to be patient. Always remember to keep your laptop plugged into AC power. And of course, make sure that you do not have anyone trip over the cords for your programming power supply, your laptop, or any other cords that you might have on the vehicle. You can see here the software is downloading and flashing that information to the all-wheel drive control module. And eventually we get to the prompt where it tells us that the procedure is complete and we need to switch the ignition off. So now we're going to switch the ignition off. We're going to hit OK. Now the application is completed. So now we can hit OK. Once we click OK, we can go back to key on, engine off. So now we've conducted the first two steps, programmable module installation and the software update. Lastly, we need to write the active torque coupling configuration to the new all-wheel drive control module. So here, again, we're going to go to the toolbox, we're going to click on the all-wheel drive module, and then we're going to click on active torque coupling configuration, download, and then run. Once that completes, it's going to take us to the next screen. We're going to have prompts just like we did before. So here, it's reminding us these are the conditions under which you have to perform this. So we'll click continue on the bottom right. Now, it's going to tell us the torque coupling will have a sticker on it, which we also saw in the service manual, and that's going to contain the necessary information that we have to enter into the all-wheel drive control module. You see, it also tells you which letters the sequence starts with. So we'll click OK. Again, back to the service information, you can see here is an example. Remember, this code that you see is specific to an individual transfer case. Do not use a generic code. Do not use this code on your transfer case. Make sure you use the code on your transfer case. Why? This affects how the transfer case is specifically controlled and actuated. If you put the wrong code in, it can shorten the life or cause damage to the transfer case itself. So make sure you are using the correct information from your specific transfer case. So now we're going to get a screen that comes up like this, and we need to type in, we need to type in the information from the sticker. Now, I did not show the information here because, again, the information we typed in here is the information off of our transfer case, not the information you need to type into yours. So again, we're going to type in the information here. We're going to click continue once we typed it in. Now, the software is going to say whether or not it's accepting that information. Here you can see here that the software is confirmed. It is now writing the information. Once it's complete, it's going to give you a confirmation message if you did it correctly, if the information was correct. It'll say procedure successful. It'll confirm what was entered into the all-wheel drive control module. You can cross-check that with the sticker again from your transfer case and verify that they match. And assuming everything matches and you get a procedure successful message, you can go ahead and click OK and proceed. Now, we've completed the 3 steps that are necessary based on the service information and best practices. So what we need to do next is our final confirmation that all of the communication codes we were concerned about with respect to this vehicle and in reference to the issue that the customer was experiencing. As you can see here, there are a bunch of orange or reddish colored modules indicating there were a bunch of continuously monitored DTCs stored, or CMDTCs. So we're going to go back to Vehicle Identification tab, click on Vehicle Info, and then we're going to click on View All CMDTCs. That's going to take us to a screen like this. And assuming you didn't clear the fault codes before you initiated your programming, you will have all the fault codes you had still stored before you did the work. Now, what we want to do is clear all those fault codes. So what we'll do is we're going to go here to this screen. We're going to see everything we had in all the modules. Once it processes and retrieves all the codes, you'll get a screen up here in the top left that says Clear and Retest. This is the button we want to use to clear all of these fault codes out of all the modules. And again, you can see the vast majority of the codes we have stored here are lost communication related codes. So we're going to clear those faults, and the software on Ford is fairly good about retesting itself when you click the retest button. So we're going to clear all the faults and retest. It's going to give you a prompt and it's going to say, are you sure you want to do this? We're going to confirm and say, yes, we do. You'll see a screen like this that will show you that that's being carried out. And then it's going to attempt to test all the modules and retrieve all the fault codes one more time. Here you can see the majority of our modules have now turned green again. They don't have any continuously monitored DTCs or diagnostic trouble codes stored. The only codes that have returned are codes that are not related to our initial concern. They are unrelated diagnostic problems. So we want to make sure we scroll through the entire list, verify that there are no other faults in any of the rest of the modules, and then we can test drive the vehicle and verify that everything is working normally. Once we've done that, we have properly validated that our replacement procedure has gone correctly and that the concern that we replaced the module for has been resolved, and now the vehicle is ready to be returned to the customer in normal operating condition. So, just wanted to take the time to say thank you for taking the time to watch our video here on programming the all-wheel drive control module, brand new unit from the OEM on this 2020 Ford Explorer. Again, as always, I'm Hawken with Topdon. Thanks for taking the time to watch. Please like, subscribe, and share, and we'll see you on the next video.